the college football playoff is being talked about expanding to 14 teams. Because remember what we said, the new format got decided upon. It's 5+7. That's great, cool. Let's lock in 12 teams. We've waited forever to have an expanded playoff, it sounds like, for some of y'all. And so we go to 12 teams. Great. But there's that children's book where if you give a mouse a cookie, it's going to want some milk. And y'all that read that book, you know what happens there. But if you don't, that's kind of the premise of if you give a little bit to someone, they're going to want the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. So the powers that be in this college football playoff committee and so on and so forth, like now they're saying, okay, well, what about 14 teams? That would make us more money. That would kind of help everybody, right? And it's sort of happening that way, but I think what's really happening here is the need for a commissioner, the need for regulation in college football has never been greater, not just because of NIL, not just because of the transfer portal, but in this specific situation, the folks that are at the table making these decisions all have specific interests and specific allegiances to their respective conferences. So yes, I'm J.D. Pickell with On3, but I don't have any allegiance to YouTube. I don't have any allegiance to the sports media world. Like, for us to have a conversation about the future of YouTube and to act like I don't have an interest in On3's, place in that is just foolish. And that's what's happening here. The SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, they're all at the table here together. And the folks that are at that table, they represent their conference. So yes, I'm going to talk about the future of college football, of course, through the lens of how can I help my conference the most. And so the also, important thing to know here is the folks holding most of the cards here, they got the SEC and the Big Ten logo somewhere on their tie or on their jacket or whatever. So the issue here is, and Pete Nako said this morning, if we're going to go to 14 teams, let's not pretend like that's going to open the floodgates for equal opportunity for more teams to get in the college football playoff from the G5 level or whatever. Like, no, if we go to 14 teams, it sounds like there will be some automatic qualifiers to the college football playoff tied to respective conferences. So the SEC and the Big Ten are saying, okay, you want to go to 14? We'll talk about it. But understand, we go to 14, we're going to 14 on our terms. We're going to 14 with 4 automatic qualifiers from the SEC or the Big Ten or what have you, whichever conference it ends up being and however that works out. So if you're the ACC or if you're the Big 12, you're kind of along for the ride here to a degree because you're like, they hold the cards. We want to keep our playoff spot. It makes everybody more money to a degree. Like, all right, let's keep this thing rolling. That's how I've interpreted it. And I want to go back to what I just said a second ago about equal opportunity. There's this thought now that as we go to more teams, there's going to be more opportunity for everybody in the college football landscape to make the college football playoff. Y'all, the equal opportunity was always, in my opinion, a little bit of, it's always kind of fake, which sounds like a funny word to use. But what I mean by fake, I mean that whole narrative around you will eventually get equal opportunity as you expand the playoff. Like, equal opportunity existed within the 4-team playoff. And some folks might disagree with that based on what happened this last season. And I understand where you're coming from, but like the thought that if you take care of business and you do it in the right fashion, which is Florida State was, I think, a tremendous anomaly, you're going to be able to have your chance to make the college football playoff. And to put a finer point on this, if it wasn't the most equal opportunity with 4 teams, it's 100% there with 12 teams now. And the thing that I don't appreciate is the equal opportunity being spread across the board and then placed an emphasis on the postseason. Like, same thing we've said throughout the course of this week. Like, I'm here for games being played in August and November, that stretch. I'm here for those games meaning the most. And this thought that you're going to have more meaningful playoff games in the postseason, I hear where you're coming from. I think that thought process makes sense. But when you take a step backwards, I'm cool with the second round of the playoff meaning a lot, but also think about this. Right now, in that 4-team model, how much did week 6 of the college football regular season mean? That's a meaningful game. So I understand money runs this whole thing, and it's going to be kind of bizarre to see it unfold here. 100%, though, make sure we understand this. The SEC and the Big Ten, they hold the cards. We go to 14 teams, we go to 16 teams, like this report is indicating. It will not be a situation where we spread the wealth to the G5 or to the ACC. Like, it's going to the big boys, all right? So more spots, more money, but as we say, with more money, more problems. Last point here, Pete Nakos made a really interesting point when we jumped on the phone this morning. The length of the college football season, if we go to 16 teams, is going to be a lot like a professional season. And think about it now, like if you're a professional athlete, you're getting paid, I would imagine, a little bit more these days because of, one, just your performance is a big part of it. But I mean, the fact that you're doing more work because of playing more games, That's going to trickle down to the collegiate ranks as well. If we get to a season where these guys are playing like 16 plus games and I'm a player, I'm like, okay, I'm putting my body at risk more times, more frequently. I want to be compensated accordingly for the work that I'm doing. So that's also a thing that we're going to run into here when it comes to NIL and the player compensation model that we're addressing. It's a wild world that we're living in right now. The tectonic plates, they continue to shift from the conference powers to the college football playoff expansion to the transfer portal and the calendar. Like, there's a lot of changes happening. I promise you, this is not the last time we will talk about major changes in college football this offseason. Whether it's the ACC, whether it's more concrete news on the college football playoff model as a whole, because there's some reports out there they want to get this future model for 2026 done sooner rather than later so they can kind of get a good gauge for where the TV agreements stand and things like that. Keep an eye on this. Head on the swivel. This episode, this show, The Hard Count, is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, if you're a fan of the USC Trojans, man, you got some exciting games now. You're going to go play a game in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You got a game in Las Vegas to open the year against LSU. You got Penn State coming to the Coliseum. Don't you want to see those in person? Don't you want to make sure you get to witness those historic events, not at the comfort of your couch? If you do, great, but I think it's a little bit more meaningful to see it in person, especially for that first year in the Big Ten. The best way to do that, buy your tickets using Game Time. Okay, Game Time, before you buy, you get to see your view from the seat, from the app. It's a great way to do things. Also, if you find a ticket in the same row or section for less, Game Time, they credit you 110% of the difference. That's the Game Time guarantee. So download the Game Time app and redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT, for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time. Best tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.